Okay.
Awesome. All right, we're live. Well, thanks for jumping on, Adam. I'm joined here by Adam Weeks, who is the director of Fit to Play Golf, and we're gonna just chop it up, chat about kind of the a college golf, and also talking about your specialty, which lies in that strength and conditioning component. The golfers actually being athletes and really, pulling the most out of that strength and conditioning component. And I think it's really, really important for these young golfers to understand as they want to take their sport to the next level. But first of all, I guess I'll let you do a bit of an intro on yourself, and then we'll just crack straight into it. So I'll kind of leave it with you, Adam.
Okay. Yeah. Quick intro. Adam Weeks, golf fitness and performance coach, working out of Golfers Hub. Background is in the TPI suite of accreditations, fitness, power, golf, junior. Yeah, newly sort of established centre out in Port Melbourne in Victoria.
Awesome. Sweet. So yeah, I guess this webinar is to explain some of the myths as well about this, about college golf, about the what's required to be an elite golfer as well, and how to maximize your output as an athlete when it comes to the sport of golf, because that's something that more and more college coaches are wanting to see. They don't just want to see scores, although it is very, very important. A lot of coaches also want to see, your durability and your availability as well. And if you're not performing as an athlete, it can be really difficult to have that availability and durability because you're playing golf. I was talking to one of our athletes from Sydney who's at a junior college at the moment, and he's playing 4 hours of golf minimum a day. That's a lot of swinging. That's a lot of action going on, and being able to maintain that output is really important. But yeah, I guess Adam, what are some of the common mistakes that you're seeing junior golfers make before they kind of get to that next level?
Sure. Look, I think the thing that I've seen as a parent is probably quantity over quality. It's something which the youngsters are never shy of putting in the time and the effort, the hours. They're always willing to practice. After school, they're putting in the work. I think sometimes that work ethic can sometimes be a little bit misguided. As in, they're spending 5 or 6 hours at the range, and I think a lot of that is born from the Tiger Woods mentality of the grind, which is something I'm trying to support the people that I have an influence on and here to be able to say, look, we have evolved a lot in sports science and things in the last sort of decade, and as golf and golf fitness is probably a new emerging part of the sport, whereas for a lot of the other sports, footy, soccer, your other ball sports and things, the conditioning element is probably better known. Golf is typically sort of taught from, grandfathers or fathers, and swing it slow, swing it, keep it straight. And the practicing upon hour and hour is the thing which I see is most evident. So probably
It's
the
not.
biggest
Oh, yeah, so
yeah,
it's
gone.
kind of, not necessarily just working harder, but working smarter, and that's kinda evident with the younger kids coming through, and is that where you're seeing a lot of the injuries coming from, is just kids being out on the range for 6 hours, and then what are those kinda injuries that these kids are getting?
Look, I am, and it's probably leading to the faults which I see in the latter generation, being the older client, 65 plus sort of thing that's still out there playing. There's a lot of shoulders, elbows, wrists, being used to generate the swing rather than the bigger body parts being the low body using ground force, using their hips, using their torso. And it's consistent. What I have seen is the junior golfers, present with impeccable swings, amazing swings, great swing speed, but they haven't quite earned the right to use that speed just yet. Therefore, we see low back problems, we see wrist injuries, and a general sort of mention of fatigue and discomfort while playing, which is not a good thing at a young age to be playing in discomfort.
Mm. No, absolutely, absolutely. And what are some of those the early warning signs that parents should be looking out for when they've got these young golfers? Because you know, we work with not only the kids, right, but at platform we also work with a lot of the parents, and for us to be able to advise them on some things to look out for to avoid injuries. What are some key characteristics that that these parents should be looking out for?
I think in the early years, it's to encourage kids to still have a fairly wide skill set when it comes to playing sport. So if they're still playing tennis or footy or other things which can athletically develop them, you probably don't need to start to really refine and just play golf until maybe your early teens, sort of, 15, 16, when maybe the demands of the sport become greater. So for one, probably still having a multi-diversity in the actual input from other sports if they're doing them at school and things like that. But then to also, biasly speaking, start to incorporate some of the stuff in the physical work in a gym setting. So most kids don't tend to think about a gym till maybe 15, 16 years old. Obviously there's limitations with visiting some gyms, but even with the school programs and PE classes, the gyms seem to be reserved for the footy teams and the teams rather than the individuals. So I would be trying to encourage the parents and the kids to sort of shove their way in there and be able to work to some baseline measurements and programming to begin with, just to get them familiar with lifting and conditioning for the sport. Yeah, that's kind of the encouragement from what I've seen thus far. The kids that just sort of play golf and all they do is play and practice golf isn't necessarily developing the athlete that we would like to see. And certainly from, I'm sure both of our views, what college are expecting. They certainly want an athlete when they turn up, but I think that's developed across a bit more multifaceted.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like, yeah, gone are the days where, the golfers aren't seen as the jocks per se, especially in America. Like you look at guys like, I mean, Bryson DeChambeau, right? He's a prime example of someone who's just, taken what you do, that the golf strength and conditioning aspect, and turned himself into a beast. Like, have you seen that guy's gym setup that he's got at home?
Yeah, I mean, he's arguably been the person in the last, 5 years that it's really brought prominence to the idea of, if you want to go faster, you want to hit it longer. We know that the averages suggest that without 120 mile per hour club head speed, you're not going to make it on tour. So speed is a factor. We know the American courses are set up for a bomb and gouge sort of gameplay. So you've got to be able to hit it far enough. I think the thing which, that I've noticed is that there's still a bit of a sticking point between both young and old, between what you do in the gym, and that the traditional bodybuilding workout, or the split combination of chest and tries, backs and buys, legs one day. It's not conducive of our sport, which is very much rotational power, rotational control, sequencing. um, with they're typically taking, monkey see, monkey do. You walk into a gym and everyone's using, sagittal plane dominant movements, isolated things. They're not really reflecting the swing demands. So the idea is to prepare like what we would do in any sport context, prepare them for the actual requirements of the sport, which is very much, ground up and, rotational heavy focus.
Okay. No, it makes a lot of sense. And obviously, when it comes to strength training for golfers, what sort of structure are you seeing the athletes? Because I know you've worked with some really top kids and some top juniors that have, I know one of them is actually currently in the US playing at a Division One college, and what sort of structure are you seeing these guys and girls put together for themselves to maximize, that strength training with obviously range time, with playing in tournaments and traveling and also school on top of that, right? So how like what are you seeing structure wise that some people could take on board?
Look, I think it's for the long-term athletic development, right? So that means to understand their windows of training. So, at what age is appropriate, and we use things like peak height velocity to tell us that. So when the children are on their highest growth spurts is when we do want to try and look at more physical development. We measure that in the club, and it was amazing to see so many young people come back after a couple of months of not seeing them during school holidays and watch them all sprout.
Yeah,
Quite something to behold. They're going to increase by 2 or 3 inches. But look, I think it's coming down to breaking that into their week, and we probably know that better as adults because we've got to manage, family, work, friends, responsibilities, education. Take your pick. We will lead quite multi-diverse lives. That you've got to plan for that, and what that means is sort of taking a little bit of a step back from the grind approach of, okay, well, I'm going to spend 6 hours at the range, I'm going to play twice, I'm going to do XYZ, to say, okay, what's my physical preparation, mental preparation, playing achievements and goals, and how do I structure all of that together? So I think during the playing season, which, a lot of the juniors are just coming out of at the moment, they played heavily over the sort of December and January period. That's the time where you're trying to peak for your playing ability, and you do want to be training less. You want to be doing a bit of maintenance work, a little bit of um, body maintenance in order to be ready for the next tournament. But during the off season and lead up to that, it's generally, I sort of see maybe the 60-40 mix switch around between being more the physical attributes of putting in that time and effort, and then into switching that to being more playing focused. During the winter season, we'll begin to see them work more into a strength and conditioning phase. So I'm an advocate for trying to teach people that, training needs to be periodized and phased in correctly. You can't just train. No athlete just trains the same way every week in, week out. That's
yeah,
not how the body responds to the conditioning. So look, I think between that and their schooling, I'm certainly hearing it from parents and people. Obviously, school takes the key priority, especially coming into the kids' latter years, and that has to be accounted for. And you have to allow the time to be a kid, as well, and have fun. The challenge and the reality is that also, college waits for nobody. You have to turn up athletically prepared with the grades and everything else, and that's where I guess, where we've and our partnership comes from, Will, is to try and make sure that, we can provide them with the right information in order to be best prepared to take all those things, into account.
yeah,
The athletic window is open during those couple of times leading into their, maturing from their secondary school days, into potentially a college. And the same sort of thing happens obviously from a grades perspective as well. So, planning, heaps of planning, and that's no mean feat and undertaking for, parents out there to try and juggle, probably a couple of children and their own lives and interests and things as well. But
yeah.
planning.
No, planning is key, and I guess it's for us like why we love getting the athletes on, in yet the year 9 and 10 phase where maybe you're not going to be talking to college coaches already. Maybe we've got a year or two before we start that process, but it's all the stuff leading up to it, which is going to generate the best results. Understanding the tournaments to be playing and understanding that structure around, how you should be training, how you should be managing school, understanding whether or not the student athlete can balance golf with study. Some kids can do it really, really well. I was just talking to an athlete from Tasmania the other day, and they're talking about pulling their kid out of normal high school and doing online high school so that he spend more time playing golf and spend more time traveling. And for me, I said my advice there is if he can do it, great. If he can't, he needs to go back into school. Not every student athlete can do that, and it's when when we have more time to understand who the athlete is, what they're capable of, and that's where you can really map out a strong plan. But why are you seeing many golfers kind of stall around that 16, 17-year-old mark, and what are your thoughts on why that is the case in terms of you know going from being very competitive in the juniors to now playing in more events at the higher more adult level? Are you seeing a lot of golfers stall around that 16, 17 mark?
Look, on occasions, it depends on, I guess, the mental fortitude and focus, and I guess it's a tough thing to be as a coach. To I'm someone that asks sometimes those tough questions. That I'm just reading through a book at the moment by Ben Crow, and he's talking a lot about our expectations become higher and higher. The performance consistently tends to drop because we're only sort of trying to envision outcomes rather than necessarily understand that plan and that pathway step by step. So look, for some of them, it can be a difficult stage. You've got the expectations of completing your schooling and getting your grades, which from the time you're 5 or 6, that's kind of what you've worked towards, and where you need to get to. The reality is there's probably more education to come. So that is again another factor that has to be kept into check. But I mean, one thing I have found is from the people that really want to take the college prospect seriously, is sometimes that can be a real carrot to dangle, and something which can be a lot more engaging for the young kids, to be able to understand that their studies and their learning are worth more beyond their grade. There's potentially opportunities and things that open up beyond that. Um, so on the majority of occasions, I think it really instills a bit of focus into the young adult, um, and preparing them for potentially what happens after they finish school, and ultimately, hopefully enter into a college opportunity. And that's kind of where we're not only there to bridge the physical pathway side of it, but I like to make people aware of the task at hand. And as you were saying, with a lot of different countries around the world, they may take this as a different proposition. I mean, I had a young boy come from Thailand over the Christmas period. He came here for 8 days. He trained with me 5. He saw another coach at MGA 6 times. Um, Turned around, went back home. Not what I'd call Christmas, but it's they're looking for any opportunity in which to try and seek out advice and support to gain that next level. And I think that's if everyone can be on board of that, as far as the team, to say, look, we're going to explore opportunities, and we're going to see exactly what we can do in order to make these things a reality. Then they're willing to take step by step.
Mm, mm. And do you think that maybe a part of that could be due to tournament load or over competing? Do you believe that that's even a thing, over competing? Because sometimes we get athletes who just absolutely load up their tournament schedule, and then you can see that rather than going like this, they're actually going like this, or staying flat and plateauing. But what are you seeing happening, and what are your views on progress happening in training blocks rather than just the tournament side of things?
Look, and I think that that is a my investigation into that over the recent 2 or 3 years with, which junior tournaments are the most valuable to play, which one holds, WAGO ratings, which ones are going to put in best fields, geographically easy to travel to. So I'm sort of building that framework in order to give the advice to kids that are currently within my system or coming on board around, okay, this is what your tournament schedule should look like. We learn that a little bit from the PGA guys when they talk about how they want to prepare for their season and build up to majors and things. I'd be conducting, myself or giving direction to young people the same way. The 1 day tournaments are there to get comfortable with playing in a tournament environment, shake off some of the nerves and begin to be able to put your best performance forward. But really, from an international standard, um, America's not going to give much interest to a 1 day tournament. It's not even, that's a day playing golf, right? Um, versus the bigger events, you've got the Riversdale Cup just coming up. You've got a number of the sort of amateur master events and things as well. It is to try and build in and create a season. The difficulty with that is obviously the young guys and girls need to do that in combination with their SACs and their exams, and that's where I probably see the biggest challenges happening for the last couple of years of their high school positions are to try and juggle all that together, because
Mhm.
they also need to try and have a break. They also want to try and get ready for exams, et cetera, et cetera. Um, the reality is someone's out there prepared to do it all. Um and 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 that's where I think it's got to be a little bit of a team agreement between, mum, dad, children, in order to try and have this focus. It doesn't come easy, but there is a lot potentially on the line for ones that are sort of seeking the college ambition, and to further their golf. And I mean, let's be fair, it's also coming with potentially scholarships and further education paid for by the university system over there. That's the ultimate. There are a number of levels towards getting to that, but yeah, look, I think returning back to your question, I think quality before quantity again is the key factor. Prep for your tournaments correctly, play the ones which are going to be important to play, and build yourself into those by having your smaller events and getting comfortable with playing. But I've certainly seen um, juniors play 1 day event after 1 day event. I mean, you're also playing a different course, different grass conditions, different layouts all the time. Versus, you're then potentially fatiguing yourself in order to go out and perform at the biggest stage.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And kind of last question on this recovery side of things, overtraining side of things. In your expertise, how important is sleep as kind of like a performance weapon, I guess you could call it, where you know what are the benefits of getting good sleep, especially like prior to a tournament? Because I know sometimes I talk with athletes about it, our golfers, and some of them really struggle to get good sleep before a tournament. What are your views and your research and your understanding of how important sleep is, especially for a young golfer going through the junior ranks?
Yeah, it's imperative. I mean, we know that from a sleep and recovery standpoint, if you're not getting that sort of 6 to 8 hours a night of quality sleep and deep REM state, it's going to inhibit recovery in order to come back and perform again. We try to impart, our education systems are talking a lot about the guys' quality of sleep, guys and girls of, what they're eating, their nutrition wise, but you've got to be able to do it. You've got to be able to do it with a certain stress-free attitude. That's probably the thing which I enjoy most about being the young people. They look like there's not too much that bothers them, but um, look, quality sleep paramount to be able to recover and go again. The physical readiness and preparation is all part of it, in order to perform. So yeah, a
Does that
nine
the
point
same
nine out
go
of ten.
for does the same go for, like, those simple things like hydration, basic mobility, stretching, are those are those kind of tedious things that a lot of athletes, or especially junior athletes, they look at and go, oh, I don't know if it's really, I can't be bothered doing that. Oh, I can skip that. How imperative are those sorts of things? Obviously, sleep is a big one, but there's a bunch of other little things as well. And have you seen cases where athletes have missed that, and it's maybe impacted their performance?
Yeah, look, we talk a lot about the cognitive control and ability to be able to say that, okay, are there dips in performance that are related to, your food intake and your hydration throughout the game? There was a couple of key studies that came out of the US around, the amount of food, protein, carbohydrate you should be having on a micro and a macro level throughout a game. It's a 4.5 hour to 5 hour game, generally more in tournament. That's excluding your warm up and whatever else you're doing. But again, it's the kind of the monkey see, monkey do. They've typically seen golfers turn up from the car park to the first tee with maybe half a dozen sort of driver swings and away you go. But the awareness that golfers need to be better prepared as athletes in order to best perform in the game is becoming more paramount and coming to the forefront. And that's something obviously I'm very excited about, and part of why we've developed the centre we have at Golfers Hub to really be able to identify and not only measure all those things, but also to be able to treat. So, part of my work with John, the osteopath here, and we're introducing sort of different class structures in order to try and cover each bases, is so they are as best prepared as what they can be. But you do see it. Lack of nutrition. I only drank water throughout 5 hours. Okay, I mean, do you not think that your brain requires some carbohydrate to make sure that you're remaining focused and controlled? But the way golf is played, and being a very mindful sport and one which you've got plenty of time to think, you really do need to consider your mental capacity to take in information and make good decisions. And typically, when we talk about a player's round, they obviously automatically refer to the things that they did poorly rather than they did well as their normal. It's every golfer, I think. It's not just juniors, but um, we start to explore that, and keeping a journal and things around, okay, if you were creating certain issues on a group of holes, 12 to 15, I've made the turn or whatever else, have you thought about eating and nutrition and hydration and a bit of a mental reset every sort of 3 or 4 holes to give yourself the best capability in order to perform? And can you create linkages between bad shots, bad situations, that are maybe back within your control? Of course, we all have a bad shot, but you tend to find that bigger mistakes and doubles and triple bogeys are often made from quick decisions, rash decisions, without taking in all
Mm,
consideration. And we could say, well, that's life. That happens, and we don't really play a reactionary sport. It's not like the ball's coming at you and you've got to, either hit it back over the net or you've got to catch it and move and dive. We spend a lot of time dwelling and thinking over it. So, look, I think that training your mental fortitude, training your physical capacity, in order to perform a long event, and I can't probably stress that the most, is that it's a long event played primarily in summer in the hottest parts of the day. You add tournament conditions to that, and the stress and anxiety load becomes much, much greater. So, that's why we're sort of introducing some stuff with, Jenny, a mindset coach in the golf space up in Queensland, as well as, I'm doing my own investigation and learnings in order to help sort of support the young and old with the same sort of processes, because I know and understand it from a business background, and I think the similar sort of things can apply from segmenting those as particular things to work on for the juniors.
yeah, I think that mental fortitude is so important, especially for any young student athlete. I think it's something that's huge. Not even just golf, every sport. Being able to make decisions not necessarily just based off reactions, making decisions that are going to best benefit the outcome of what you're trying to achieve. And that's definitely something that kids need to spend a lot of time and energy understanding how their brain works. And I even think for golfers, that's why academics are so important. Being able actually to analyze things and being able to study as you can apply that on the golf course probably more than a lot of other sports. Being able to be in an exam, a high pressure situation, you're sitting, couple strokes behind the leader, and this shot is really make or break. That's a high pressure situation, similar to what you might find in an exam. It's not necessarily, like you say, the whole team running at you and you've got to try and evade them, but it's just you and the ball. You and your club, and you have to make the right decision, similar to an exam, right? You and your pen, you got to write down the right answer. So I can see a lot of benefits from the academic side of things. And to be honest, a lot of our top golfers are also very, very strong academically as well. There's quite a correlation there, and they are very proud of their academics as well, and put a lot of effort into it. Because a lot of golfers are also perfectionists. They very much want to make sure they do things perfectly the first time, and that's where a lot of our best golfers come from. What what's some of the best physical prep that golfers can do? So we talked about the mental side, but what about physically? Like, say, the night before a tournament, a big tournament, or before a tournament. You're turning up to your tee times in an hour, 45 minutes. What are some of the best physical prep
Mm.
that these kids can be doing?
Look, I think it's a little bit based on the individual and what they're doing in their periodization and programmings in the lead up, not necessarily just a tournament. Like, I guess, we're trying to develop the correct protocols to ensure that every golfer, young and old, has got a certain system in which they would prepare. And we know from to a level experience that that differs greatly between player to player. Some people like hitting 20 balls, five putts, X amount of time with a physio, X amount of time in the gym. I think it's about trying to be as physically prepared for the way their body is going to react to that first tee shot. So we're trying to build a pretty cohesive set of systems in order to try to segment the individual into one of those systems. Their physical preparation is, in my view, um, talked about throughout the year about how they're kind of going into their off season, getting their strength work done, and then talking about more their ballistic speed and power prior to their playing components, and then going into more of a deload position coming into a heavy tournament schedule. I mean, I've been one of the biggest surprises I've had over the last few years is how many tournaments there are for juniors.
Crazy.
And between the states of Australia and far and wide to play. And the reality is, the better you get, the higher and more difficult the schedule. So when one of my guys was representing the Victoria to go and play up in Queensland, he'd go and say, like, he plays a 36 hole day, a 36 hole day, an 18, then a 36 hole. And I'm just like, that's a load of golf, man. Like,
That's crazy.
you know, that's so much. But and I asked myself, what exactly is that preparing them for? And the reality is, it's preparing them for greater honors. If they can figure out how they can perform under fatigue and under pressure, mentally, physically, and everything else, then they'll know what their best is capable of, or maybe their worst, and maybe their worst is still good enough. But in terms of sort of, day by day preparation, what they're doing, following programming, we obviously provide all of that online. So it's, click and go into, what's appropriate for you. And then with the individual pre-tournament phase, we're trying to connect a little bit of the mind and the muscle together in order to wash out some of the anxiety stuff. So, one of my guys that was just doing China, Q school in China at the moment, there was a limited set of range facilities or access, because the course they were playing in China was not, easy to get on and do practice rounds and preparation for. So, we worked out a plan for him to do some basic work in his hotel gym, using bands, balls, and do preparation. And thankfully he made it through stage two of Q school there. And, he said he actually didn't hit balls beforehand. He hit a few putts to get the pace of the green, but, it was more the physical preparation and getting mentally set for it, versus hitting balls. So, I don't think there's many golfers out there which shy of hitting enough golf balls in practice
Yeah,
or in play. I think it's the other elements that are more the preparation for it, which is in my humble opinion, maybe the greater focal point at the moment.
for sure. No, absolutely. No, it's all very interesting stuff. It's not. Yeah, you can just see the developments over the last few years in golf, and and you kind of leading the front of it with the TPI, and that whole setup. Do you want to explain a little bit more about you know exactly what you do with your golfers, and also tell us a little bit about Golfers Hub. Obviously, last time I was down, I was in its like infancy stages. The walls were getting knocked down, but it's all done. It's all looking fresh now. I'm excited to come back down and check it out. But yeah, let's talk about Golfers Hub. Let's talk about Fit to Play. Let's talk about you and the what you do with your golfers to maximize their performance. What would a training session look like? What can these kids expect? Because I can guarantee I got a lot of kids that that will be watching this that are sitting there scratching their heads, going, "Wow, how do I access this?"
Okay, let's unpack that. So, TPI, what is it? Titleist Performance Institute. So, they are seen as the leaders within the educational space when it comes to all things golf. So they've got, a junior pathway, medical pathway, fitness, golf, power. I think that's all of them. My skills and accreditations are across all of them outside of medical. And I'm just about to head to the States this April and do TPI 3, which can only be done in person, across both golf and fitness. So I'm looking forward to meeting Dave and Greg over there and being part of the newly developed educational wing that they've created at TPI in Oceanside. So that'll be a great chance for me to get hands-on experience. And ultimately bring a lot of key learnings and things home, hoping to do a couple of college
We've
visits while I'm there and
we've
hit the
almost got
ground
a
and
couple
make a few
sorted out.
contacts. That's
We've,
good.
we've
Looking
almost got a
forward to
couple
that.
sorted out, which is good.
And then look, why was Golfers Hub created? So I guess formally as a um, trainer in my own right in the gym that I had, it just wasn't fit for purpose. So, Golfers Hub was created to be able to be multifaceted to cover all the things that I'm of the view of need to, be measured and assessed within the golf athlete and within the golf swing. So, when we did our bay here, it was needing to be beyond the measuring the club and the ball. So we invested into high speed cameras and, in my view, the best non-markerless um, technology within Sportsbox AI. That gives us all the metrics that we need to basically track the swing and things over time. So from that, we start to delve into the analytical side of golf and learning about all the key measures about how the body moves, what it's doing. And for me, that's the greatest leveler that as a coach, are we producing the athlete in order to create a better golf swing? Can we correlate the two? So I know I can make someone stronger. I know I can make someone faster, or I can sort of be confident, and I'm sure John would sort of lay testament to the idea of being able to, assess injuries and more preventative care and management for the body. But it's all got to come back to the swing. So there's no one that enters into makes contact with me or enters our doors, which is there just to um, be a little bit stronger or be a little bit faster or things like that. It's how do I improve my golf? So, on the basis of that, we've got a thorough assessment protocol. So, we run TPI assessments, and resulting in that whole golf fitness handicaps, we then go into more of a strength and conditioning set of protocols and measures. Again, some of the TPI tools. We've also developed our own assessment tools and things as well, in order to be able to measure the player. From there, we begin the real meat and the stew, which is the training programs that we create and supply the individual and the golfer, and then the performance assessments and things sort of get remeasured. Each sort of block of training that we go through. So, from downstairs, we've got our open format space, a little bit sort of CrossFit esque in terms of look and feel, in place where we can run round, we can slam balls, we can jump, we can leap, we can do more of the athlete appropriate style of training. Which is, if you look at any of the gyms associated to the college programs over in the US, you've got power racks, and then you've got a lot of, you got a lot of space to do a lot of
Yeah.
athletic things. So, it's important that, and that's very different from a traditional gym. Um, we've got our speed tools, we've got our super speed sticks, mobility sticks, we've got all the implements that I've tested and tried in order to be able to have that knowledge to pass on to people that come through the doors. But then bringing all that together as part of the melting pot of our ecosystem is based on shared knowledge. So, we've got an on-site osteo. We've just about to have our first coach join us in the PGA certified swing coach space. We've also got some classes being run by different clinicians and other people which are specialists in those areas as well. So, for us, the ecosystem is only as good as the people that drive it. But I feel that we've created the basis for it, and hopefully looking to attract some great contributors over the next sort of 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, no, it's a wicked space. There's yeah, not a lot like it, which I think is really cool. And just coming down when it was 6 months ago, and being around it, and seeing what you guys can offer, and what your plans were, and now seeing it like seeing it come to fruition is really really cool. Obviously, you got the basketball hoop in there as well, which I've got some good film of me putting up some basketball shots. I don't think I hit one.
Yeah, I don't think you hit many. No.
But that's all right. We move on. But no, like, I think it's honestly a no-brainer for these young golfers coming through now, and for injury prevention is huge, and preparing your body physically for what the demands are at college. Like these college programs, how they're set up, for those who don't know, you've got around 8 to 12 guys on a college golf roster, and you're competing every single day as a college golfer. You've got qualifying rounds throughout the week. You got tournaments on every odd weekend, and you're always competing and always qualifying for those top spots. And the last thing you want to do is be seated 12th out of 12 guys on your roster, or 8 out of 8. You want to be always competing in that top 5, because those top 5 guys are the ones that are going to go compete in the tournaments. If you're at the bottom of the barrel, you're not going to be traveling to the events. So that's also in the gym too. Like these college golf programs, you'll have team lift. So, you've got to go in there and understand how to lift. I could imagine, Adam, like in your time, you've seen some golfers that are amazing golfers, but then you chuck a barbell on their back and they would have no clue how to squat, or, chuck them a couple dumbbells and they wouldn't know what to do with them. Is that out of pocket to
No,
say?
no. Look, I mean, they can look at it and think it's a witch's broom, and we're asking them to fly, right? Like
Yeah.
it's and that's where they do need to feel comfortable within the physical athletic development space, right? Because I mean, that's all part and part of the journey. Consistently, we refer back to obviously the juniors, some of the key things that they're developing pain and discomfort in a swing. And more often than not, I either have one or two requests as parents sort of bring their juniors in. One, make them the best golfer they can be, or two, make sure they don't break themselves.
Hmm.
Like that's the other key consideration is because they do see a lot of injury that comes from golf. And maybe that's not as well known or regarded. You don't tend to see big ACLs or shoulder dislocations and things, obviously, with golf, but it's a wearing of joints, which is the thing which I try to make sure first and foremost that we're looking to protect, and that's kind of in correlation to when we were talking about speed and things before. Obviously, everybody wants to go faster in their golf swing, but there's a safe and there's a smart way to do it, and that's ultimately preparing the body physically. Overspeed training will have its part in that, but you've still got to be the athlete appropriate of swinging 110, 115, 120 mile per hour club head speed. Those things can't be ignored as purely, well, I can, so I will. Because yeah, probably on the odd occasion you will get it out there that quickly, but is it being done in a repetition fashion where you're not starting to really cause stress and strain on ligaments, tendons, joints? That's where some of the bigger conversations come from when we're talking about what the athlete needs to experience and do within the gym setting, and how they are going to get faster, how they are going to get stronger. And yeah, you're right, the competitive nature of college means that they are going to be in a team environment, but it's every man for himself. And I'm of the view that the coaches over there are to get the best out of them, to play with their best top four, top five each week in, week out. And you're going to be tested. You've got to produce not only the results, but, both academically and within the golf course continuously. But it's continuing to raise the level of, the profile of golf. I mean, we've seen on a more than one occasion in the past 6 months, an 18 or a 19-year-old feature in PGA Tour events. I mean, there was a young guy, 18 years old, that was in the last group with Scotty Scheffler only a few weeks ago, and it just goes to show college is a production line for producing some of the best. It's also going to sort out those that maybe aren't going to make it to the top level, but that's okay. I mean, you're going to test yourself at the highest level, and that's important when I think it comes to sports. I mean, I think that's what we're trying to do. The offset of that, you get a great experience and you get a kick-ass education, and you're part of an alumni that's for a lifetime. That they can't take that away from you. So.
No, no, exactly. I think, and it all comes down to that preparation. I remember my dad used to always say, preparation prevents piss poor performance, and it could never be more true. Especially when it comes to wanting to be an elite junior golfer, because the game of golf has just gone like this. Everyone's playing it now, and everyone is wanting to be really good at it. And we're seeing at Platform Sports more and more competition for A spots in Division One programs, which are often seen as the cream of the crop. You have to be elite. You have to be performing at an extremely high level in order to do that. There's not gone are the days where you can just have a couple good rounds and have a college program pick you up. No, you got to be committed. It is as close as being professional as you could get without being called a professional.
Well, look, and I think within that comes why is it so difficult? Why is it so sought after internationally? The opportunity. I mean, you've got. I think I read a report saying there's 13 colleges in the US that offer $1 billion athletic program. Okay, a lot of that's going to be weighted to professional basketball and football, gridiron. But that filters down to all sports, and that therefore is creating people to see the opportunity, both financially, both from an education, both from an experience level, in order to be part of those spots and part of those D1 colleges, or the variety of other colleges on offer throughout the states, and the UK. Is opportunity. People can grow their brand out for those opportunities. They can get exposure to the top coaches, the best facilities, but it takes work. Yeah, let's be under no illusion here. You're not just going to waltz in. There it takes a tremendous amount of focus and dedication, which is very difficult for an expectation necessarily as a young person to have all those things, which is why I think they need a team around them in order to take off some of that work, some off that load, but still put the emphasis on the correct load management and things during the course of they're quite crucial last couple of years in school before they figure out what's next.
That's it. And I love how you said, it takes a team. I think it absolutely it takes a whole village of people supporting the one athlete. And I think that's what's really cool about what we offer as a partnership and alongside with Jenny as well. Just creating this like shield to protect the athlete and so they can focus on what they need to do. We give them every tool available so that they can do it. And I think we're definitely building a really, really cool thing where, a lot of golfers are going to get some support and it's going to help give them that leverage over other recruits. How I know it's getting late, but so I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me, Adam. But how can families get in touch with you as well? If they're based either locally around Port Melbourne or maybe online and they just want to get a bit more information, get a bit of a program, get a bit of structure, right? How can they get in touch with you?
Sure. So, two methods, directly emailing me, info@fittoplay.com.au. You can visit the website, fittoplay.com.au. There is some information on there around the Athletic Academy junior program that I've got in development at the moment. We're starting to pull some resources and focal points into that, and also we'll be providing some great opportunities and scholarships and things to a couple of select individuals sort of yearly as well. So on the website is my number, email address, and some information. Parents can sort of do their own inquiries and things on there first. Then we can get together, do a discovery call, and flesh out exactly what they're looking to do. Services and things that we provide are available online. So the coaching programs are online. I run live Zoom calls in the gym and things downstairs, which is the benefit of having a private space versus public. So we can, I've got an ISS and coach people all over the world at any point in time. It's just got to make sure it geographically aligns. But part of the systems and tools that we have with Sportsbox and our online coaching apps and things is that we can train worldwide, we can support worldwide, and just drop us a line and be happy to pass on some information and see how we can help.
That's it. Or just message me and I'll put you in touch with Adam as well.
Or you can do that too.
I can absolutely do that. And be sure to get some content. We'll come down. You got the simulator, which is cool. We're down in Melbourne in a couple of weeks, so we'll definitely be stopping by. And I think there's a bit of a competition internally at platform of who's got the best golf swing. So I think we've got
Okay,
I think we've got someone super qualified that can maybe maybe judge it. So
definitely.
it's cool, man. I really appreciate you jumping on, and I just think it's such a valuable bit of information and such a valuable process to go under being a golfer because so many people are missing the ball. So yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time and yeah, we'll just keep doing our thing and yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, look, I think it's about leaving no stone left unturned, right? Like I think that at the moment, there's some incredible young juniors that are coming out with great swings and, low handicappers playing off scratch at 13, 14 years old. And I think we'll see more of that. I think the thing which is probably lesser known, that is going to be the requirement to break out of being a good junior to being on a much greater, bigger stage as a college athlete is obviously the preparation and physical development that comes along with that. The talent will get you so far. The work ethic that's supported and comes in behind that is going to obviously raise the bar and that, and you know, have those opportunities out there come to the forefront. So hopefully we can pass on as much knowledge and information as we can and support parents and families and the juniors and things out there to get to where they need to go.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's wrap that up there, and yeah, we'll keep in touch.